Hello everyone, Storm11 here. Today we'll be talking about the very cold temperatures as expected later tonight and into tomorrow morning. A light snow chance may show up, mainly for eastern Kentucky on Thursday. Then we get a nice moderation period for your Friday and into parts of your Saturday. And then we talk about the next Arctic air blast in the winter weather potential that it has with it as well. So we're going to get started with the watch warning advisory display across the country. Overall, mostly quiet across the central part of the country. Got some scattered winter weather alerts for parts of the Great Lakes. Some of that's due to lake effect snow. And the biggest story is going to be the wildfires in Southern California. Once again, LA under the gun for conditions pretty favorable for wildfires down there, more towards the north of the city. And those are not just regular fire weather warnings, those are PDS fire weather warnings, which is one of the rarest types of warnings that the National Service can issue. And conditions are extremely favorable for rapidly moving wildfires that can move at a pretty incredible speed. It's not going to be to the extent that we saw several days ago. It's not going to be as bad, at least in terms of wind. The winds on the last event, you had winds up to 100 miles an hour. In this one here, we may see winds up to 70. Regardless, though, conditions will still be very favorable for large and wildfires that could be hard to contain. Meanwhile, here in Kentucky this evening, we got an Arctic front that is passing through, and you can see how the temperatures are really cooling down, especially across the north of Kentucky. We are already down into the mid-teens as we neared 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And then across southern Kentucky, we're still in the mid 20s to even some low 30s out there. And those areas down there, those temperatures will likely drop. And some areas north of 64 could get below zero tonight. And this is the European model for temperatures. And might be a little bit too cool, but we're still talking about the potential for below zero temperatures. You can see here, especially along the north of 64, it's got temperatures anywhere from about, we'll say, minus 2 degrees to about minus 6 north of 64. If you got snow on the ground, there's a pretty good chance you're going to go below zero for a temperature, or at least around zero. South of 64 here, especially towards the Tennessee border, it's going to be milder where we don't have as much snow on the ground. You can see in Bowling Green, 14 degrees. I think you guys can stay in the teens tonight. You guys don't have any snow left, and plus, you guys hit the mid 40s today for your high temperature in parts of western Kentucky. So that tells me there's no snow left down there. And in southeastern Kentucky, some single digits in the lower valleys, higher elevations, and then some areas can still be in the teens. And the high temperatures tomorrow, and the European model is likely running too cold. High temperature 12 degrees, I don't see that. The European model has been running a few degrees too cold for our high temperature, so I imagine we'll be in the 20s for highs for Wednesday tomorrow. And then we'll get cold again Thursday night. It's not going to be as cold, and right around this time, it's going to be our next system. So this is the HRRR. Most of the snow has stayed north of the Ohio River on our Clipper system here, and all we've really seen was just maybe a few snowflakes and even some strong winds strong enough to briefly cover some county roads out there, so a little bit of snow drifting. And you see our high pressure system building into Kentucky tomorrow morning, so that's going to help rapidly cool down our temperatures tonight and also keep our skies mostly clear. And then here comes our next Clipper system, as you can tell, up towards Wisconsin, and you can see how that system there dives into parts of eastern Kentucky. It could go as far west as the 127 corridor Thursday morning, and then there could be some snow flurries lingering into Thursday afternoon. If we were to check out the high-res NAM, you can see it's a little more enthusiastic with those snow flurries and snow showers. So we'll mention the chance for some snow flurries and snow showers out there. It's not going to amount to much either. If you do get accumulation, it's going to be a fraction of an inch. I mean, it's probably a less than half an inch of snow. I mean, it's not going to amount to much out there. And going back to temperatures here, this is the high temperatures from the European model. So you can see here across northern and eastern Kentucky, we'll probably be stuck in the 30s. Northern Kentucky, there might be an opportunity. A couple areas may get stuck in the 20s most of the day, but I think most of Kentucky will be in the 30s. The only exception would be across western Kentucky. We'll get deep in the 40s once again. And the low temperature for Friday actually isn't too bad. Low to mid 20s. Some areas may not even make it out of the 30s. And here's the high temperature for Friday. And this is likely running too cold in central and northern Kentucky. I think most of Kentucky could hit the 40s. And meanwhile, western Kentucky, hey, I think we could hit the low 50s out there for your Friday. So far temperatures have been overperforming by a few degrees from the European model. So you're going to have to add a few degrees to these numbers here. And then here comes our Arctic cold front. This is a strong cold front that's going to be approaching the area. And that would arrive Saturday night into Sunday. And that leads to our next system, which we'll talk about here using the American model. So if we go back here, here's our Arctic frontier. We're going to go a countrywide view to really see the whole picture. So we got a pretty strong low pressure system that's moving up across Canada. And we got this Arctic front that stretches all the way down through the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, going back down towards the southern plains. And this is a pretty strong cold front. This is really going to drop our temperatures. We'll likely start off as rain for Friday night and into Saturday. And then as the cold front passes through, any moisture that's left behind the cold front will likely be in the form of snow. Right now, the American model is not all that enthusiastic, but that could change as we get closer. I think we can get some snow flurries and snow showers behind that Arctic front. Usually when we have an Arctic front coming through Kentucky, there's usually going to be some light snow that comes along with it. And this is where things start to get interesting. So as the Arctic air starts to settle in here, this is getting into Sunday. And the American model is spinning out a storm system down towards the Carolinas, a 1,007 millibar low near Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. This is going to be our next system to watch. So we got a Clipper system that's going to move across parts of eastern Kentucky Thursday, and then got the cold front coming through Saturday, and then we got this storm system to watch on Sunday. Now, here's the issue with this. Now, I'm showing the American model because it's done a little bit better at this range here compared to the rest of the model guidance on picking up storm systems. The GFS may be too progressive with this, so it might be too far to the southeast. And I'll kind of explain why here in a minute, but you can see the GFS model shows a strengthening low pressure system off the east coast, and that could bring some pretty good snows for areas along the east coast, including New York City, which New York City haven't seen much snow this winter. And then the Arctic air just settles in here, and I think some of the coldest temperatures of next week, I believe, is going to be Monday and into Tuesday, and it could very well linger into Wednesday. And we got to keep an eye on another potential storm system down towards the south here. And you can also see here, this is a very strong high pressure system, 1,045 millibars. That's a very strong high pressure system. Even going this, if we back this up a little bit more, if we go to Monday morning, look how strong this high pressure system is. 1,055 millibars. That is a very strong high pressure system, and you're having all kinds of very cold air being filtered in across the central and eastern part of the country. It's still pretty cold across the Rockies here. Really, the only areas that could be milder with the temperatures will be along the west coast down towards the desert southwest into South Texas, and then down towards Florida. But here's the issue with these models here, and this makes me go over to the European ensembles about this pattern here. So this is the 500 millibar height anomaly means from January 18th through the 23rd. Or put it this way, it's from Saturday to next Thursday as a 5-day mean. What's going on here that's going to cause this huge Arctic air blast to move into the United States? Well, one thing is that we got this huge ridge that's going to be building across the northeastern part of the Pacific. It will even cover parts of the west coast, and it will go all the way up through Alaska, BC, and even going up towards the Arctic Circle. We also have a little bit of a negative NAO pattern, which is usually ridging over Greenland. And there's also a ridge just off the east coast out there. And what happens here, this is a classic blocking pattern for all that cold air that sits up here to get shoved to the south into the lower 48. And this is basically your polar vortex, by the way. And there's going to be some nasty cold off to our northwest. The upper Midwest, the northern plains, and even some of the Rocky Mountain states could be very cold for temperatures out there. And here's the problem with this setup here. And there's a guy, if you've been on X, any followers watching this video from my X account, may have heard of Eric Webb before. He's a government meteorologist from New Mexico, and he studies these winter weather patterns for many years. And one thing that he did say today is that for his personal experience here, models tend to bleed too far to the east with this Arctic air blast, with Arctic air setups like these. Usually what happens here, most of the time, is they tend to bleed more to the south than east. And if you guys remember from February of 2021, we had 3 major winter storms that went through Kentucky. We had some snow, we had quite a bit of ice. We actually had 2 ice storms that went through parts of Kentucky. And then a big winter storm to put the cherry on top. And the cold air was more focused off to the west. And this is kind of a similar setup to that. And we also have to pay attention to this ridge out here, because normally for any northeastern people that loves the snow or wants a big snowstorm out of this, the ridge axis is actually pretty far off to the west. It's actually off the west coast. Normally when you have, or if you want a major northeastern storm or a nor'easter, you want that ridge axis to be somewhat like right here, across parts of Nevada, Idaho, maybe even into parts of Montana. You can see we are pretty far off to the west with our ridge axis right now. And this is a part of the reason why we're probably going to see this whole trough here get shifted back to the west. So what you were seeing from the GFS model, if I go back to it, on that storm system on Sunday, there's a pretty decent chance that it's too far to the southeast. It's likely too progressive, and you can kind of see the axis of this whole trough here. The axis of the trough stretches from Minnesota all the way down to eastern Texas. It's probably going to look something like this. For the eastern Rockies down into the southern plains here, and you're probably going to see this whole trough here shift back to the west. So what happens if this whole trough shifts back to the west? What does it mean for Kentucky? Well, basically this whole storm track, the models have been very consistent on the storm track down towards the Gulf Coast and even going through parts of the east coast of the Carolinas. That storm track is probably going to trend back to the northwest. And honestly, the way I see this pattern here setting up, we may have the potential to see an Appalachia runner event. I could see this trend pretty far back to the northwest. What's also another factor is snow on the ground. You know, how much snow will it have on the ground before this Arctic air blast? And honestly, I think the models are underestimating the melting process. Some models still believe some of us still has several inches of snow on the ground, but I think we're getting down towards a couple of inches, especially considering on Friday where we're going to hit the 40s. And that's actually why the European model has been running too cold, because it still believes we still have a lot of snow on the ground. I mean, we still do, but it's not as much as what the models think. So, and that tends to lead to more suppression on these storms. If you don't know what suppression is, that means a more progressive system. It's more flat, less snow, and it's not as strong. With a northwest trend, you will have a stronger storm system, more amplified, and you get more snow on the backside. So you get a bigger winter storm on the colder side of the system. If we check out another ensemble mean, like the Canadian ensembles, the other day it was a little bit farther back to the west compared to the European ensembles. It is still just a little bit here. It's still a little bit back to the west. And it's also a little bit deeper with that trough as well here. And I think we're going to trend closer to the Canadian ensembles. And I can even see the Canadian ensembles trending back to the west as well. Now, regardless of the storm track, it's going to be very cold. Let's talk about those temperature anomalies. So this is the 5-day average 2-meter temperature anomalies. And you can see here it's very cold. Nearly the entire United States could be below normal for temperatures for a couple days next week. And that kind of gets to show you how serious this Arctic air blast really is here. And you can kind of see the core of the Arctic cold here. It kind of goes just along and east of the Rockies from Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, down into Texas. And that's what we typically see with an Arctic air blast like this. And that's kind of the main reason why that we believe that the modeling here might be too far to the east with this. There's also a little bullseye of well below normal temperature anomalies over the Ohio Valley. Why is that? Well, because it still believes that there's going to be snow on the ground at the time, which I don't think there's going to be enough snow to really make a big difference. I would say at a max, maybe an inch of snow. It could be a little bit more up in Indiana and Ohio, but I don't think it's going to be enough to make a huge difference on this here. And that's the European ensembles. If we check out the not the GFS, but the Canadian ensembles, it's even colder with the anomalies here. And you can see this very large area of well below normal temperatures, generally across the central United States and even across parts of the Rockies as well. So that kind of gets to show you that this is going to be a pretty big deal. Now, is it going to be colder than what we've been seeing? I think we could get down to what we've been seeing in terms of temperatures again. Like tonight, like what we're talking about, potential for below zero temperatures. If we do get snow on the ground, if we do get a snowpack from a winter storm, which I think the potential still exists for a winter storm for us early next week, then we can definitely go below zero for temperatures for a couple of mornings. But it's something to kind of wait and see. And one last thing I want to check here on these models here is the precipitation anomalies here. And as I talked about here, models tend to underestimate the precipitation anomalies. They tend to be too dry. And the main reason why is that the model guidance tends to have a difficult time of finding storm systems, especially this range here. So that's why it tends to be too dry. But you can kind of clearly see where it believes the active storm track is going to be. And you can see it's pretty far to the south. But like I said earlier, we're probably going to see that trend to the northwest here. It may not be tomorrow. It might be later in the week. We'll see when this northwest trend kind of gets going here. Here's the Canadian ensembles. It's a little bit farther to the northwest, but I can also see this trend a little bit more to the northwest as well. And one last thing before I go, let's check out the latest Climate Prediction Center's outlooks. 6 to 10 day temperature and precipitation outlook. This is from January 20th through the 24th. Obviously very cold. The only area that could be near normal or above normal for temperatures will be out towards California and western Nevada. And you can see how most of the Arctic air really settles in across the central and eastern United States. And there's your precipitation outlook. They're trending more drier on this. And here's the thing. You don't need above normal precipitation to get snow. In terms of moisture, if you compare rain to snow, there's not as much moisture within snowflakes than it is with just a rain droplet. And rain adds up a lot more than snow to your precipitation anomalies. So that's why you always see your precipitation always being above normal across the south and southeast, and that's probably where the low track is going to be. But also, going back to the snow, there's not as much moisture within snowflakes. It's pretty dry, and you can still get snow even with below normal precipitation. So I want to put that out there. Don't be mistaken that below normal precipitation means that you're not going to see snow. Even areas in the below normal precipitation can still get snow out of this pattern here. So I just wanted to put that out there before anybody tries to make some assumptions. And here's the 8 to 14 day outlook. This is from January 22nd through the 28th, so almost the end of the month. And still continues to favor colder than normal temperatures across the central and eastern part of the country. And check that out. We got a probability of above normal precipitation, which means the pattern could be active as we head towards the end of January. And here's the hazardous outlook, and you can see here a very large high-risk area across the eastern and down towards the Gulf Coast for well below normal temperatures. That includes the entire state of Kentucky. Precipitation, a slight risk of heavy precipitation to our south and southeast. I agree with that. No risk for heavy snow yet. And I'm just saying yet because the confidence is too low. There is potential for heavy snow somewhere out there. There's just not enough confidence to put out an area. And last but not least is the wind. And unfortunately, it is not where we would want for high winds. There's a moderate risk for high winds for southwestern California, where the wildfires have been raging over the last couple days. Hopefully that changes. We do not want to see those high winds continuing down across Southern California. But anyways, guys, this all got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you really like my channel, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell notifications so you never miss an upload. If you guys got any questions, put in the comment section down below. I answer you guys questions. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day.